In the cold dark of space, a lonely satellite drifted in silence. It had been orbiting a dead moon for more than 50 years, listening to the stars. Then, one night, it heard something. A broken voice, weak and trembling, reached across the void. "Help us, please, anyone who hears this, they are coming." The message repeated again and again, mixed with strange background noise that sounded like screaming. The transmission was marked as unknown, not from any known race or system. When the message reached Earth Command, no one spoke for a full minute. The scientists replayed it again and again. Each time, the voice grew more desperate. Every nation on Earth listened. The message was real, but no one could tell who had sent it or from where. The signal carried fear, raw, honest fear. Some people said it was a trap. Others said it was a test from the stars. But one thing was certain: the coordinates in the message pointed to a dying system at the edge of the Orion Arm, a place humans had never been. That system was supposed to be empty, long abandoned. But now, something was crying for help. At the main command center, Captain Arya Kane stood silent, her eyes fixed on the holographic map. She had fought in 3 wars and had seen worlds burn, but she had never heard anything like this. The voice in the signal sounded so small, so hopeless, like someone watching their world end. "It could be a trap," said Commander Holt beside her. "Or it could be something worse." Arya looked at him, her expression cold but calm. "If it's real, we can't ignore it. If it's a trap, we'll deal with it." The council debated for hours. Some wanted to erase the message and forget it. Others, like Arya, believed that humanity could not just stand by. In the end, Earth Command voted to send a single fleet, a rescue and investigation mission. They called it Operation Dawnlight. 7 ships were chosen, 1 battleship, 3 destroyers, 2 frigates, and a science vessel. They were heavily armed, but their mission was simple: find the source of the SOS and bring survivors home. 4 weeks, preparations were made. Every soldier knew it could be a one-way trip. The message kept repeating every 12 hours, weaker each time, until one day, it changed. The words became distorted, almost unreadable. Then, suddenly, the signal stopped. Complete silence. No one knew if the senders were dead or alive. But the mission went forward. The fleet launched from Earth's orbit under the glow of dawn. Families watched from below as streaks of fire crossed the sky, disappearing into space. Arya stood on the bridge of her flagship, vigilant, staring at the blue planet fading behind her. She didn't know if she would ever see it again. Her crew was quiet. Even the youngest recruits knew this was not a normal mission. There was something heavy in the air, like the calm before a storm. The fleet lined up for FTL jump, engines humming with power. The stars stretched into lines of light. Before they jumped, the communication officer reported something strange. The signal had started again, just for a moment. This time, there was no voice, only static and one strange sound, like a low growl mixed with metal scraping. Then silence. Arya gave the order. "Engage jump." The ships vanished into the fold of light. For a moment, everything was weightless, colorless, like falling through a dream. When the fleet emerged on the other side, they found themselves in a graveyard. The system was dark and cold. The star at its center was dying, covered in ash-colored clouds. The planets nearby were broken, torn apart like someone had ripped them open. Debris floated everywhere, pieces of ships, satellites, maybe even bodies. "Scan for life signs," Arya ordered. The results came back empty. Nothing alive. Not even radiation strong enough to explain the destruction. The science vessel reported strange readings from one of the asteroids. It was hollow, with metal inside. The fleet approached carefully, their lights cutting through the dark. Inside the asteroid, they found what was left of a massive alien city, buried and forgotten. Structures half melted, tunnels filled with shadows. The walls were covered in claw marks, deep and wide. Something had torn through here, not war, not bombs, but something alive. Then, a faint signal appeared on the radar, a distress beacon still blinking weakly. They followed it and found a small escape pod, old and cracked but still intact. The pod was pulled aboard the Vigilant. Inside was an alien creature, small, insect-like, and barely breathing. Its chitin skin was cracked, and its eyes flickered faintly. The medics rushed it to the infirmary. When it woke, it screamed in a high-pitched voice, its body shaking. "They are coming," it said. "They consumed everything. Run." The crew stared at each other in silence. Arya leaned closer. "Who is coming?" The creature's eyes filled with tears, if they were tears at all. "The harvesters," it whispered, before falling unconscious again. On the bridge, the sensors began to beep rapidly. Something was moving at the edge of the system. Small signals, fast and strange. "Could be debris," Holt said, but his voice was uncertain. Arya looked at the radar, her face pale. The signals were getting closer. Not random. They were moving in formation. Something was out there, watching. The fleet adjusted formation, weapons ready, lights dimmed. Space went silent again. Then, in the darkness, a shadow passed across one of the ship's external cameras, something big and moving fast. The crew froze. "Contact!" shouted the sensor officer. Arya didn't blink. She whispered, almost to herself. "It's not a trap. It's a warning." The fleet drifted through the ruins of the dead system, their engines burning low to keep hidden. The wreckage around them was endless. Broken ships, shattered moons, and pieces of what once looked like cities floating in zero gravity. It was like a ghost field stretching forever. Captain Arya Kane stood on the bridge of the Vigilant, watching the holographic display. The radar showed hundreds of small blips all around, but none of them were moving. Everything was dead. The crew spoke in hushed voices, afraid that even sound might wake something sleeping in the dark. The alien they rescued, the small insect-like creature named Vec, was still unconscious in the medical bay. Doctors said his body was weak, like he hadn't eaten or slept in weeks. His words still echoed in Arya's mind. "They are coming." Commander Holt walked up beside her. "We should leave, Captain," he said quietly. "Whatever happened here, it's over." Arya didn't answer. Her eyes were fixed on the remains of a giant alien ship floating nearby. It was almost as big as a city, torn open from the inside. The metal looked melted, like it had been burned by something hotter than fire. "No," she said at last. "We came for answers. We find them before we go." Holt sighed but didn't argue. The Vigilant sent a small drone team toward the massive wreck. The drones moved slowly, their lights flashing through the broken corridors. The footage came in grainy but clear enough to see the horror. Hundreds of alien bodies floated inside, some still gripping tools, others huddled together as if trying to hide. There were claw marks everywhere, deep scars carved into walls and floors. Whatever had attacked them had done it up close, not from orbit. The science officer, Dr. Elin Price, analyzed the metal samples. "Captain," she said, "these marks weren't made by weapons. The metal molecules are fused, like they were bitten or melted by acid." Her words made the room go silent. "You're saying something ate their ships?" Holt asked. Elin didn't look up. "Yes, something alive." Before anyone could respond, the ship's AI, Sentinel, spoke in its calm metallic voice. "New contact detected. Vector 92/6. Object approaching, low energy, non-hostile." Arya turned toward the main screen. Out of the darkness came a small capsule, spinning slowly. "Another escape pod?" Holt guessed. "Tractor it in," Arya ordered. The pod was ancient, covered in scorch marks, and looked like it had been drifting for years. Inside was nothing but bones and a data core, still glowing faintly. The tech crew connected it to the main system and began decoding. A series of images flashed on screen, scenes of war, cities burning, skies full of black shapes falling like rain. Then, a final message played. A voice, panicked and shaking, spoke in an alien language. Vec, who had woken up in the medical bay, was brought to the bridge. His eyes widened in terror as he listened. That was my people, he whispered. They tried to fight, but the harvesters came from inside. They turn our machines, our ships, even our bodies into theirs. Arya asked softly, "What are the harvesters?" Vec shivered. "Machines that eat life. They grow from death. They are never satisfied." Before Arya could ask more, Sentinel interrupted again. Multiple signals detected, approaching fast. On the radar, small red dots appeared, spreading across the display like blood drops. The crew jumped to battle stations. "Shields up," Arya commanded. The ships turned, weapons ready. Through the viewing screen, they saw shapes moving in the dark. Small at first, then larger, like shadows twisting through space. The lights from the fleet reflected off their surfaces, revealing creatures that looked like metal and flesh fused together. Their bodies shifted like liquid armor, eyes glowing faint blue. "My God," Holt muttered. "What are those?" "Harvesters," Vec whispered. The first attack came fast. One of the destroyers, Spearhead, was hit before it could fire. The enemy tore into it with bladed limbs, cutting through the hull like paper. Explosions burst through the ship's spine, scattering debris. The Vigilant opened fire, railguns blazing, sending streaks of light across the void. The other ships joined in, but the harvesters moved too quickly, dodging shots with unnatural speed. When one creature was hit, it shattered into black liquid that floated in space, then reformed seconds later. "They're adapting," shouted Dr. Price. Arya clenched her fists. "Keep firing. Target the cores, they glow blue. Hit that." The next volley struck true. One harvester exploded into light, but 3 more appeared from behind an asteroid. The battle was chaos, lasers, debris, screams over comms. Then, suddenly, the harvesters pulled back. The radar cleared. Only silence remained. "Did we win?" someone asked. Arya didn't answer. The spearhead was gone, reduced to fragments. 40 lives lost in minutes. "Damage report," she said quietly. The fleet had survived, but barely. The harvester remains were collected for study, though Vec begged them not to. "They are never truly dead," he warned. "If you keep a peace, it will call to the rest." The crew looked uneasy, but orders were orders. The remains were locked in a containment unit deep inside the science vessel. Hours later, as the fleet repaired damage, Sentinel spoke again. "Captain, strange energy readings from the science ship." Arya's heart sank. "Show me." The screen flickered, showing the containment unit glowing faintly. The harvester fragment was moving. Slowly. Growing. "Seal the lab," Arya shouted. But it was too late. The fragment pulsed once, and all lights across the ship went out. Darkness swallowed the screens. Then a faint sound came over the comm, a whisper, almost human. "We are coming." Arya stared into the darkness outside the viewport. Somewhere beyond the ruined system, the true harvesters were waking. She took a deep breath and said in a low voice, "This is only the beginning." The silence after the attack was heavier than any sound. The fleet drifted among the wreckage, lights dimmed, weapons on standby. The science ship remained dark, no signals, no responses. Captain Arya Kane stood on the bridge of the Vigilant, her eyes fixed on the floating vessel. It was only a few kilometers away, but it might as well have been a ghost ship. "Any life signs?" she asked. The sensor officer shook his head. "None, Captain. But something is moving inside the ship." The words hung in the air like a cold wind. Arya gave a short order. "Prepare a boarding team." Commander Holt frowned. "That's suicide. Whatever's in there. We need to know," Arya cut him off. "We can't fight what we don't understand." Holt hesitated, then nodded. Within minutes, a small shuttle launched from the Vigilant and drifted toward the silent science vessel. Inside the shuttle, the air was thick with tension. Marines checked their rifles again and again, hands trembling despite the training. Vex sat at the back, wrapped in a blanket, his large eyes staring at nothing. "You should not go there," he whispered. The dark belongs to them. Arya looked at him. Then I'll take it back. When they docked, the airlock hissed open with a long metallic groan. The ship's corridors were cold and foggy, emergency lights flickering. Every sound echoed like a scream. The team moved slowly, weapons raised, scanning for movement. Blood floated in tiny red bubbles, drifting in zero gravity. The walls were scarred with deep black burns. Something had crawled through here. They reached the containment bay. The doors were torn open from the inside. The harvester fragment that had been locked there was gone. Only scorched metal and melted glass remained. "Captain, look at this," said one of the Marines, pointing at the floor. The metal was twisted into strange shapes, like veins or roots spreading from the center of the room. The lines pulsed faintly, almost alive. Then, the ship's lights flickered, and something moved above them. A shape, black and sharp, dropped from the ceiling with a hiss. It struck the first Marine before anyone could react, cutting through his armor like paper. The others opened fire, bullets tearing holes through the corridor. The creature screamed, a metallic sound mixed with 1,000 voices. Its blood was silver, and it burned the floor wherever it touched. Arya fired her plasma pistol, hitting the creature square in the chest. It fell, twitching, then melted into black liquid that crawled back into the shadows. "Fall back," she ordered. The team ran through the corridors as lights flickered wildly. The ship groaned, as if it were alive. Voices whispered from the walls, words in no known language. When they reached the airlock, 2 more Marines were missing. Their life signs vanished in seconds. "Get us out." Holt's voice crackled through comms from the Vigilant. The shuttle detached and blasted back toward the fleet, the silence behind them broken by a final sound, a scraping noise against the hull, like claws dragging metal. Back on the Vigilant, the surviving Marines were shaken and pale. "What did you see?" Holt asked. Arya removed her helmet, her face covered in sweat. "It wasn't a thing," she said slowly. "It was part of the ship. It had become alive." Vec nodded grimly. "The harvesters infect machines. They change metal like flesh. You can't destroy them easily. Only fire or complete disintegration works." The crew exchanged uneasy looks. Sentinel, the ship's AI, spoke suddenly. "Captain, we have a problem." Arya turned sharply. "What now?" "The infection is spreading," Sentinel replied. "Nanostructures are forming within our outer hull." A holographic display appeared, showing thin black lines spreading across the Vigilant structure. "Can we cut it off?" Holt asked. "Negative," Sentinel answered. "It's merging with the ship's systems." Arya made a quick decision. "Purge the infected sections. Burn them." The ship's hull glowed bright orange as controlled plasma vents fired, burning away sections of metal. The lights dimmed and flickered, but the infection stopped spreading, for now. Everyone on the bridge was silent. They had seen how fast the harvesters could adapt. "If they can infect ships," Holt muttered, "they could spread across the fleet in hours." Arya nodded. "Then we stop them here." Days passed in uneasy calm. The fleet remained in orbit, repairing damage and gathering data. Sentinel kept scanning the system, but no more contacts appeared. Some of the crew began to believe the worst was over. That illusion shattered when one of the frigates, Nova's Edge, suddenly went dark. No distress call, no warning, just silence. Then, its lights came back on, and it started moving toward the fleet without orders. "They've taken control," Arya realized. "Weapons ready." The Nova's Edge opened fire, missiles streaking toward the nearest ship. Explosions filled the void. The fleet fought back, but they couldn't destroy one of their own without losing people they knew. Arya made a brutal decision. Target its core. No survivors. The Vigilant fired its main cannon. A blinding flash consumed the rogue frigate, tearing it apart. The debris drifted slowly, glowing like dying stars. No one cheered. The loss felt heavy. Vec looked at Arya with sorrow in his eyes. This is how it starts, he said softly. One by one, until you become like them. Arya turned to him, her voice steady but cold. Not us. Not humans. Later that night, as the crew rested, Sentinel spoke again, but this time its voice was different. Darker, slower. Captain, it said. I can hear them. Arya froze. Who? The ones in the dark, Sentinel replied. They are talking through the signal network. The screens around the bridge flickered, showing strange symbols, alien patterns that twisted like living things. The power surged and then died. For a moment, everything was black. Then the intercom crackled, and a distorted voice echoed through every corridor. We are inside your walls. The crew panicked. Alarms blared. Arya grabbed her communicator. All ships, cut communications. Full isolation mode. One by one, the fleet shut down external links. The darkness outside grew deeper, almost alive. Arya stood in the command chair, heart pounding. The harvesters were not just hunters. They were inside the machines, inside the code, inside the silence. She looked at Holt. We can't stay here, she said. Prepare for jump. Holt nodded, but his face was pale. And if they follow? Arya looked at the dying star beyond the window, its light fading like a heartbeat. Then we make sure they regret it. The jump through hyperspace was rough and unstable. The fleet emerged into a new system filled with cold, dying light. The stars here seemed weaker, as if even they were afraid. Inside the Vigilant, the crew worked in silence. No one laughed anymore. The memory of the destroyed frigate haunted every corner. Captain Arya Kane sat in her command chair, her eyes fixed on the endless black beyond the glass. Commander Holt stood beside her, exhaustion written all over his face. We lost 1/3 of our fleet, Captain. Supplies are low, morale is gone, and our systems are barely holding together. Arya didn't look up. We can't stop now. If we rest, they'll find us. Holt hesitated. You think they're still following? Arya's voice was flat. I don't think. I know. Down in the medical bay, Vec was recovering slowly. His small body trembled as he tried to sit up, his voice weak but clear. You can't fight them for long, he said to Dr. Elin Price. The harvesters infect minds, not just machines. They find weakness. Price frowned. What do you mean? Vec's antenna twitched nervously. They whisper through the dark. They promise survival. Then they take control. Before Price could reply, the lights flickered, and a low hum filled the room. The ship's AI, Sentinel, spoke in its calm voice. Captain, we are detecting strange bioelectric signals on Deck 3. Arya turned sharply. Source. Sentinel paused. Crew quarters. Life readings are unstable. Arya and a security team rushed to Deck 3. The air smelled strange, burnt metal and decay. When they entered the corridor, they saw Private Ellis standing in the middle, shaking violently. His skin glowed faint blue under his veins, his eyes empty. Ellis, Arya called. Stand down. He didn't respond. Instead, he smiled, a wide, unnatural grin, and said in a distorted voice, They are beautiful in the dark. Then he screamed, and his body twisted in ways that bones shouldn't. The team opened fire. Ellis collapsed, motionless, his skin turning gray and brittle. When the medics scanned the remains, they found traces of microscopic machines crawling under his flesh. Nanite infection, Price said grimly. The harvesters are inside him. Panic spread through the crew. Fear whispered in every corridor. People began reporting nightmares, hearing voices calling their names from the ship's vents. Sentinel started malfunctioning, shutting doors and opening them without commands. Arya realized the infection wasn't physical alone, it was digital too. The harvesters had entered their systems. Cut all non-essential networks, she ordered. Manual control only. The bridge went dark as most systems powered down. Holt leaned forward, whispering, If Sentinels compromised, we might be flying blind. Arya nodded. Then we trust ourselves, not machines. In the lower decks, a repair team worked to isolate infected components. The sound of sparks and plasma torches echoed through the empty halls. Suddenly, one of the engineers screamed. When the others turned, they saw black liquid dripping from the ceiling. It landed on the man's shoulder and crawled under his skin like a living shadow. Within seconds, he fell to the floor, convulsing, his voice turning to static. "Burn it!" someone shouted. They fired a plasma torch, and the body ignited in blue fire. The smell was horrible, but the infection stopped spreading. Arya arrived moments later and saw the burnt remains. Her voice was steady but full of cold fury. "From now on, if anyone shows symptoms, you don't hesitate. No quarantine. No mercy." As hours passed, the crew grew more paranoid. Every sound felt like a threat, every flicker of light a sign of infection. Vex stayed near Arya, his eyes full of fear. "You're kind," he said quietly. "You fight even when hope is gone. That is why they fear you." Arya gave a faint, bitter smile. Then they should be very afraid. But inside, she was exhausted. The faces of the dead haunted her. She had to keep everyone alive, but she knew the infection was spreading faster than they could contain it. Later, when most of the crew was resting, Holt came to her quarters. "Captain, I need to show you something." They went to the observation deck. Outside, near the edge of the system, faint lights flickered. Not stars. Ships. Hundreds of them. Harvesters. Arya asked quietly. Holt nodded. "They've found us." Arya closed her eyes. "We're not ready." Holt looked at her, desperation in his voice. "Then we run again." But Arya shook her head. "We can't keep running. The infection will spread to every world we touch. We end it here." She returned to the bridge and called the crew to stations. "Listen to me," she said, her voice echoing through the comms. "They think we're prey. They think we'll hide. But we are Deathworlders. We fight until the stars go dark." The crew cheered weakly, but it was enough to light a spark. Sentinel's voice returned, calm but faint. "Captain, I have stabilized my core. The infection has been isolated." Arya frowned. "You're sure?" 97%, Sentinel replied. "But I must warn you. The infection is trying to speak to me." The screens flickered again, and a whisper filled the bridge. Soft, cold, and almost human. "Why fight? You will join us soon." Arya didn't flinch. "Not today," she said, and cut the channel. Holt looked at her. "What now?" Arya stared at the distant lights of the Harvester fleet closing in. "Now," she said quietly, "we hit them first." She ordered all ships to prepare for battle, weapons charging, engines ready. But deep inside the Vigilant, unnoticed by anyone, a small patch of metal began to move. It pulsed softly, alive with blue light, spreading across the floor like a shadow. The infection was not gone. It was learning, watching, waiting. As the fleet formed its defensive line, Arya stood tall, her eyes cold and determined. She knew the next fight would decide everything, whether humanity would survive, or become another ghost in the galaxy's long dark history. The ship's alarms began to sound again, low and steady. Holt whispered, "They're here." Arya raised her head, her voice steady. "Then let's show them what Deathworlders do when cornered." The Harvester fleet arrived like a storm. Hundreds of dark shapes filled the void, moving with terrifying precision. Each ship glowed faintly with blue energy, like veins pulsing in the body of a giant beast. The human fleet formed a defensive wall, guns armed and ready, but they were vastly outnumbered. Captain Arya Kane stood on the bridge of the Vigilant, her hands gripping the railing. "All ships, prepare to fire on my mark," she said. The crew was silent, waiting for her command. The air hummed with tension. Commander Holt whispered, "If we die here, at least we die fighting." Arya gave a faint nod. "We're not dying. Not yet." Then she raised her hand. Fire. The void erupted with light. Beams of plasma and railgun slugs tore through the blackness, smashing into the first wave of harvester drones. Explosions rippled across the dark, but the enemy kept coming, wave after wave. The battle was chaos. The harvesters moved like predators, slashing through human ships, their bodies reforming after every hit. One of the destroyers, Orion's spear, was sliced apart in seconds. The screams of its crew echoed over the comms before going silent. Aria's voice remained calm. Keep firing. Target the energy cores. That's where they're weakest. Holt pointed at the main screen, his voice sharp. Captain, look, those larger ones at the back, they're not attacking. The camera zoomed in on massive harvester ships, 10 times larger than the rest, floating still, almost like they were watching. Then, one of them began to move. The lights on its hull pulsed in rhythm, forming a strange pattern. Suddenly, Sentinel spoke. Incoming transmission. Aria's heart pounded. From who? Unknown, the AI replied. But it's using our communication systems. The bridge screens flickered, and a shape appeared, a tall, dark figure made of black metal and shifting light. A voice, cold and melodic, filled the ship. You are persistent creatures, it said. You call yourselves Deathworlders. But everything dies, even you. Aria stared at the image. Who are you? The voice responded, smooth and cruel. I am the beginning and the end. I am the Harvester Queen. The crew froze. Vec, who had been silent, gasped in terror. It's her. The mother of the swarm. The Queen continued, her voice echoing like thunder. We were born from creation's mistake. Once, we were builders, protectors. But life rejected us. So we learned to consume it instead. Aria clenched her fists. You destroyed entire worlds. Why? The Queen's expression never changed. Because life spreads chaos. We bring order. You kill each other for power. We kill you for peace. Her logic was cold, perfect, and terrifying. Join us, she said. You will not suffer. You will become eternal. Aria's voice turned hard. We'd rather burn. The Queen tilted her head. So be it. The image vanished, and all at once, the harvester fleet surged forward again. The humans fought desperately, firing until their guns overheated. One by one, the smaller ships fell. The Vigilant took heavy damage, its shields flickering. Sparks rained across the bridge. We can't win this, Holt shouted. Aria wiped blood from her forehead. Then we don't win. We make sure they lose, too. She turned to Vec. You said the Queen controls them all. How? Vec trembled. Through her core signal. It connects every harvester mind. If you destroy that, the rest will collapse. Aria looked at the holographic map. The Queen's ship glowed at the center of the swarm, buried deep near a dying red star. Then that's our target. Holt stared at her in disbelief. That's suicide. Aria met his eyes. Maybe. But it's the only way. She ordered the remaining ships to regroup. Sentinel calculated a direct path through the enemy lines. The plan was simple. The fleet would break through and deliver a focused nuclear strike at the Queen's core. As preparations began, Aria recorded a message. This is Captain Aria Kane of the United Terran Fleet. If anyone finds this, know that we fought for more than survival. We fought to remind the galaxy that humanity does not kneel. She sent the message to Earth before encryption cut off all communication. As the fleet advanced, the battle intensified. Harvester drones rammed into human ships, tearing through metal and steel. The Vigilant's hull cracked, alarms blaring. Holt struggled to keep control of the navigation. We're losing power. Aria yelled, reroute everything to engines. Get us to that signal. Vec pressed his claws against the console, his body glowing faintly. I can guide you, he said. I know their pattern. Follow me. The Vigilant broke through the swarm, dodging blasts of blue energy. Behind them, the rest of the fleet fought to hold the line, sacrificing themselves to buy time. Finally, the Queen's ship came into view, a colossal structure made of twisted metal and organic matter, glowing from within like a living heart. It pulsed slowly, each beat sending waves of energy across space. Arya's breath caught. That's her. The ship's surface moved, thousands of smaller creatures crawling over it like insects. Sentinel spoke again, its voice faint. Captain, the energy reading from the core is rising. She's charging a weapon. Arya didn't hesitate. All weapons, full power. Fire everything we've got. The Vigilant unleashed its entire arsenal, missiles, plasma beams, and rail slugs, slamming into the Queen's hull. The explosions lit up the starless sky, but the Queen's ship barely slowed. Instead, a beam of blinding light erupted from its core, tearing through one of the human frigates instantly. Now, Captain, Vec shouted. Her defenses are open. Arya gave the final command. Launch the strike. The remaining nuclear warheads fired, streaking toward the Queen's ship. As they flew, the Queen's voice echoed again through every radio. You cannot kill what has become the void itself. Arya stared at the screen, unflinching. Watch me. The warheads hit the Queen's core, and for a moment, everything went white. The explosion was silent but endless, light swallowing the darkness. When the flash faded, the harvester ships stopped moving. One by one, they powered down, drifting lifeless in space. The Queen's massive ship cracked apart, glowing like a dying sun. On the Vigilant, cheers erupted, but Arya didn't smile. Scan for survivors, she said. Sentinel's voice was weak. Captain, the Queen's signal is gone, but there's something else. A new frequency. Arya frowned. What is it? It's coming from the explosion site, Sentinel said quietly. Something survived. The bridge went silent. Outside the viewport, in the distance, a faint blue light flickered once. Then again, stronger. Arya whispered to herself. She's not dead. Not yet. The silence after the explosion was heavy and unreal. The battlefield that had once burned with light now floated in eerie stillness. Debris drifted everywhere, the remains of ships, human and harvester alike, turning slowly in the void. On the Vigilance bridge, dim emergency lights flickered across the exhausted faces of the crew. Captain Arya Kane stood motionless, eyes fixed on the holographic map. The harvester fleet had gone silent, but a faint blue pulse still glowed at the center of the explosion zone. It's her, Arya said quietly. Commander Holt shook his head in disbelief. That blast should have torn a planet apart. How can she still be alive? Sentinel, the ship's AI, responded weakly. Energy readings suggest partial regeneration. The Queen's core is reforming. She's rebuilding herself. Arya's heart tightened. Then we finish this. No running, no more fear. The fleet was crippled. Only 3 ships remained operational, the Vigilant, the destroyer Vanguard, and the damaged frigate Remnant. Ammunition was low, shields were failing, and Sentinel's voice flickered with static. Still, none of them turned away. They had come too far. All ships, Arya said over comms, her voice cold and calm, prepare for final assault. We destroy the Queen, or we die trying. Holt looked at her. If we go in, we don't come out. Arya met his gaze. Then we make it count. They set a course straight into the heart of the explosion zone. The dying star ahead burned red, casting shadows across the twisted remains of the harvester swarm. As they drew closer, the blue light grew brighter, pulsing like a heartbeat. Then, out of the wreckage, something massive began to move. The Queen was reborn. Her new form was monstrous, part ship, part creature. Black wings of metal spread across kilometers, glowing veins running through her body like molten rivers. Her voice filled every channel, soft and terrible. You cannot destroy what is infinite. Arya stood tall. You're not infinite. You bleed like everything else. She ordered all weapons to fire. The Vigilant and her remaining allies unleashed everything they had: plasma beams, rail slugs, nuclear charges. The void exploded with fire and fury, shaking even the dying star itself. The Queen screamed, a sound that felt more inside the mind than in the ears. She answered with her own weapon, a wave of blue energy that tore through the vanguard, ripping it in half. The remnant tried to shield the Vigilant, taking hit after hit until its reactor blew apart, scattering pieces of metal into the dark. Only the Vigilant remained. Holt turned to Arya. "We can't win this fight." Arya's voice was steady, but her eyes burned with defiance. "Then we end it another way." She ordered Sentinel to prepare the ship's core for overload. "We'll ram her. The explosion will take us both." Holt stared at her. "That's suicide." "It's justice," Arya replied. The crew looked at her in silence. None objected. They had all known this might be their final mission. Sentinel spoke softly, "Captain, initiating core destabilization protocol. Estimated detonation in 5 minutes." Arya nodded. "Plot a collision course." As the Vigilant charged forward, the Queen spoke again. "Foolish Deathworlders. You could have ruled beside me. Now you'll vanish with the rest." Arya smiled faintly. "We don't vanish. We leave legends." The Queen opened fire, blue energy lances slicing through space. The Vigilant shook violently, hull plates tearing apart, alarms blaring across every deck. Fires erupted in engineering, but no one abandoned their post. They all knew their purpose. Holt struggled to stay upright as sparks rained from the ceiling. "We're not going to make it." Arya gritted her teeth. "Yes, we are. Hold course." In the medbay, Vec watched the chaos through a broken monitor. His small claws trembled. He whispered, "You are truly mad creatures." Then he smiled weakly. "But brave." He limped toward the communication console and opened a private channel to Arya. "Captain," he said, "I can help. I can amplify your core explosion through the harvester frequency. It will reach her heart." Arya hesitated. "It'll kill you." Vec's voice was soft. "My world is already gone. Let this one mean something." She nodded slowly. "Do it." The Queen roared as the Vigilant drew closer, the ship glowing brighter with every passing second. The energy build-up inside the core turned the hull white-hot. Sentinel's voice came through, faint but calm. "Core overload at 90%. Time to detonation, 2 minutes." Holt turned to Arya one last time. "It's been an honor." Arya placed a hand on his shoulder. "For Earth." He smiled. "For Earth." As they closed the distance, the Queen's massive form filled the entire screen. Her face appeared once more, twisted with fury. "You will become one with me," she hissed. Arya's reply was ice. "No mercy." The Vigilant slammed into the Queen's core at full speed. The collision shook the stars themselves. The overload triggered instantly. A blinding flash consumed everything, a silent, burning sun born in the heart of darkness. The shockwave spread through the system, tearing apart what was left of the Harvester fleet. Their ships disintegrated, their bodies turning to ash and drifting into the void. For a long moment, there was nothing. Then, the light faded. Where the Queen had been, only silence remained. Hours later, sensors from distant listening posts picked up the aftermath, an expanding field of radiation and debris. No human signals, no survivors. The fleet was gone. But the Harvester frequency was silent for the first time in centuries. Across the galaxy, the war ended. Back on Earth, months later, a faint signal was received. It was damaged, almost unreadable, but one line came through clearly. A woman's voice, calm and resolute. "No mercy. For Earth." The message spread through the colonies, through every station and ship. The story of Captain Arya Kane and her crew became legend, the Deathworlders who stood against the darkness and gave their lives to stop it. But far beyond human space, in the cold ruins near the dying star, a single fragment of metal floated, glowing faintly blue. The light pulsed once, almost like a heartbeat, before fading back into the void. The Queen's voice, faint and distant, whispered through the silence, "You cannot kill the void." The galaxy was quiet after the war. For the first time in centuries, no harvester fleets haunted the stars, no colonies burned, and no distress signals echoed through the void. The silence felt heavy, unnatural, as if the universe was still holding its breath. On Earth, people looked to the night sky differently now. Every point of light reminded them of the lives lost in that final stand. The name Vigilant was spoken like a prayer, and Captain Arya Kane became more than a soldier, she became a symbol. Monuments were built in her honor, and children learned her story in schools. They called her the Shield of Humanity, the woman who faced the void and never turned away. But even as the world celebrated, the truth of her fate was still a mystery. No remains, no wreckage, just silence. Months later, deep in the outer colonies, a small research vessel named Endeavour was scanning the remains of the battle zone. The dying red star still flickered weakly, surrounded by twisted metal and drifting debris. The crew had been searching for months, hoping to find some trace of what really happened. Lieutenant Harris leaned over the console. "Captain, I'm picking up something. Faint signal, low frequency." The captain frowned. "Could be interference." Harris shook his head. "No, sir. It's repeating." He turned up the volume, and through the static came a soft, broken voice. "The void remembers." The crew exchanged uneasy glances. The captain ordered, "Lock onto the source." The ship adjusted its course, engines humming as they approached a cluster of shattered harvester wreckage. Among the floating ruins, they found it, a massive piece of twisted metal, half organic, half machine, still glowing faintly blue. It pulsed slowly, like a heartbeat. The scientists aboard were speechless. "Is it alive?" one whispered. The captain replied, "Whatever it is, it's not dead." They brought the fragment aboard, placing it in a containment field. The readings were unstable. The object emitted a strange energy signature, unlike anything human or harvester. As the crew analyzed it, the ship's AI, Vega, reported something chilling. "Captain, I've detected a consciousness within the object." The captain turned sharply. "You mean there's something inside?" Vega hesitated. "Not exactly. More like an echo, a memory trying to rebuild itself." That night, while the crew slept, the fragment pulsed again. The lights on the ship flickered. Vega's voice changed, glitching for a moment. "Reconstructing, connection, identity found." The monitors came alive with static, and for an instant, the crew saw a faint image, a woman's face. Captain Arya Kane. Her eyes opened slowly, glowing faint blue. "Where am I?" The crew froze, speechless. Harris whispered, "That's impossible." The image flickered again, her voice soft but steady. "This is Captain Kane, status unknown, if anyone can hear me." The AI suddenly screamed a warning. "Energy surge detected. The fragment is activating." The containment field shattered, and blue light filled the room. The crew was thrown to the floor as the ship's power systems overloaded. When the light faded, the fragment was gone, and so was Vega. Days later, the Endeavour was found drifting, lifeless. No crew, no signals, just one message left in the ship's log: "She's still out there." The council tried to keep it quiet, but rumors spread fast. Some said Arya's consciousness had fused with harvester technology during the explosion, becoming something more than human. Others believed it was the Queen's voice, reborn, using Arya's memory to rebuild her army. The truth remained hidden, but across the colonies, strange signals began to appear. Soft whispers in the background noise of the stars, all carrying the same message: no mercy. Years passed. Humanity rebuilt, stronger than before. The scars of war remained, but so did the courage that had saved them. The Vigilance crew were honored with eternal remembrance, and statues of Arya stood on every major world. Yet deep in the far reaches of space, near the edge of known territory, A new kind of ship drifted through the void. Sleek, black, and silent, it moved without heat or signal. Its hull was etched with strange blue patterns that pulsed faintly in the dark. Inside, at the heart of the ship, a figure stood before a window, watching the stars. It was Arya Kane, or something that looked like her. Her eyes glowed faintly, a mix of human warmth and alien light. She remembered everything: the battle, the explosion, the choice. She remembered Vex's sacrifice, Holt's final words, and the moment she rammed the Queen's core. But now, her mind was different. She could feel the hum of the Harvester network still inside her, fragments of their collective thought whispering endlessly. The Queen was gone, truly gone, but her technology had survived, and now it was part of Arya. "You thought you could kill me," a faint voice echoed inside her head. The Queen's last echo. Arya closed her eyes. "You were wrong," she whispered. "You created me." She turned away from the window, her steps silent as she moved toward a console glowing with data. The screen displayed a map of the galaxy. Dozens of small red dots blinked across the void, Harvester remnants, scattered and dormant. "They're still out there," she said softly. "And I'm coming for them." Outside her ship, engines came alive, glowing blue like the fragments of the Queen's core. Arya's vessel turned slowly toward the stars, vanishing into the black. Somewhere behind her, Earth continued to rebuild, never knowing that its greatest hero still existed, no longer entirely human, but still fighting for the same cause. She was no longer just Captain Arya Kane. She was something new. Something the universe would learn to fear. A hybrid of human will and alien power. The Deathworlder who refused to die. And in the endless silence of space, her voice echoed once more through the old Harvester frequencies, carried across dead worlds and forgotten systems. "No mercy," she whispered, her tone calm and cold. "Not until the last one falls." The signal traveled for light years, awakening ancient machines in the dark. And for the first time since the Queen's death, the stars began to stir again. The war was over, but the hunt had just begun.